All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Ashley DeBlasi, and I'm IIMC's Director of Certification and Conference Programs. I also oversee the Athenian program. So welcome to what we're just going to call our All Things Athenian Dialogue session today. We've had quite a bit of policy changes. The program has just taken off and started to spread like wildfire, not only across the country, but it's also starting to creep into international borders. So with any policy, we felt that it was a really good idea just to reevaluate the program to make sure that we're maintaining the high quality of the individual dialogues, but that we're also looking at all the policies, the documents, the processes every few years, just to make sure that everything is still good to go and that it's still a high quality, top-notch program. So today, what we're going to talk about is a real general overview of the Athenian Dialogue program. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you and we'll get in. But while we do, again, if you haven't renamed yourself on the screen, go ahead and rename yourself so I know who you are. We will do a Q&A session at the end of the program. That way we can answer your specific questions regarding dialogues from the attendee perspective, fellow perspective, all of those that we just had you dropped in the chat. So let me go ahead and get our PowerPoint up and running today. Perfect. Can you guys see that okay? Everybody just kind of give me a nod. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about why we're doing this. Not only is it a good idea every couple of years to check in on all of our programs and all of our processes, but the Athenian Dialogue program, like I said, has completely blown up and spread like wildfire. We're going to talk about virtual dialogues here in just a few moments, but with the implementation of virtual dialogues and more books being approved, more facilitators being approved, we are actually having a hard time keeping track of all of the Athenian dialogues. So we have processes that are in place that aren't being followed. We have pre-approval steps that need to be taken that aren't being taken. So our hopes today is that we can put this together to give everybody an idea of expectations from IIMC's perspective, but also what your role is as an association, as an attendee, or as a facilitator. So just to get us all on the same page to make sure that this program stays at the high level that we're looking to have this honor be bestowed as the fellow, we want to make sure that we really look at this program in depth. So to do so, we have to look back where we've been. The first Athenian Dialogue was hosted in 2005. A lot of the Athenian dialogues that were offered years and years and years ago weren't actually IIMC credit approved, meaning CMC and MMCs. It took quite a few years for certification credit to actually be offered for some of these programs. So just so we know, the program has been around for quite a few years. So let's see where things are actually at now. And this is the part, oops, let me go back. Sorry about that. And this is the part that I really want us to look at and understand as we go through today's program. So Athenian Dialogues, you can see the last 5 years or so listed on the chart here. We started out in 2016 with 42 dialogues offered, 2017, 55, 2018, 59, and then we hit 2019 with 90 dialogues. We had a huge jump. 2020, we had well over 150 dialogues slotted on the calendar before the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So huge increase in the numbers. And with that, obviously as clerks, we all understand the record keeping that comes with it and how easy it is to have things get lost or policies and procedures not followed. When COVID-19 hit and the pandemic struck, Athenian Dialogue paused for about 2 months. Everything that was on the books got canceled. No in-person opportunities were offered. So we took, with the Education and Professional Development Committee, the Education Department and that committee presented to the board to request the allowance of virtual dialogues, meaning Zoom, GoToMeeting, whatever it is, that platform that the associations or the hosts wanted to use. Even with the pause and the delay that it took to put together those dialogues, we still ended up with 73 in 2020. So a huge number of these sessions that are being offered. Just to give us an idea of where we're at now, it's only the end of June, 6 months into the year, and we have 57 of these dialogues being offered now. So tons more are coming in. I have quite a few in my inbox that I haven't even gotten to the approval process for. So just keep in mind that when you are hosting a dialogue, when you're interested in a dialogue, we all got to keep track of these together and stay on the same page. So how do we do that? Let's go into some of the details. So the biggest reason for our call today is to help keep track and help get us all on the same page for virtual dialogues. Those are the ones that we're having the hardest time keeping track of, and that we're asking your help as an attendee, as a facilitator, as a fellow, as anyone that's involved in these programs. Let's all work together to make sure that we have all of these approved, that way your attendees are getting credit. So on May 8th, the Board of Directors 2021 voted to allow virtual dialogues to be offered forever. Quite a good conversation happened between the Education and Professional Development Committee before making this recommendation, and some of our attendees on the call today are on that committee. A great conversation, really good conversations with the board, and it was pretty much unanimous that these programs added value. The ability to connect across the globe on these sessions was well outweighed the risks that we found with online learning. So virtual dialogues are allowed to be offered indefinitely. With that though, we also implemented a new policy, which we'll go ahead and take a look at. Now in here, we will post this PowerPoint presentation on the website as the PowerPoint as well, so you'll have access to this, but we'll also post this recording too on the website. So with this policy, let's take a quick peek at it really quick, and I will use this link here. Now, this policy has been in place since the beginning of the program, but we've made quite a few additions in there. You will see additions in the policy for who can host dialogues. There are certain sections based on the hosting organization and what their individual requirements are. But the new section that I want to highlight is going to be this virtual Athenian Dialogue section. This is brand new, approved as of May 8th, 2021, excuse me. But this will outline the virtual specific sessions. So as we go through today's session, keep in mind that there's going to be a little bit of guidelines for in-person sessions, and then there's a separate set of guidelines for online. They go hand in hand, but there are different things that will need to happen with a virtual dialogue. So this can be found on the IIMC webpage under the Education tab, and then Athenian Leadership Society. If you click on those, it will be able to get you all of the resources, all of the information that you need for Athenian Dialogue. So make sure that you familiarize yourself with this, not only as an attendee, but if you are a facilitator, take a look at these. If you're a hosting organization, such as an institute or an association, also please look at these just to make sure that you are up to date on all things Athenian. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. So when it comes to hosting Athenian Dialogues, there are 3 different groups that can host. And this is one of the biggest issues that we've been running into lately as the education department. Dialogues can be hosted by IIMC. They can be hosted by state, national, provincial clerk associations, and they can be hosted by approved institutes. Individual clerks and individual municipalities cannot host a dialogue. They have to be run through the education committee on one of these groups. Now, let me clarify individual municipalities and individual clerks. We get questions all the time saying, let's say the clerk of Rancho Cucamonga, where IIMC's headquarters is located, wants to host an Athenian Dialogue. You can hold the Athenian Dialogue at Rancho Cucamonga City Hall or whatever city hall you're going to be using, but they can't be considered the hosting organization. That needs to be run through either the clerk association on the local level or through the institute. It can be held at that location, but they can't be considered the host. So if there are any questions about hosting and who can and who can't, drop those in the chat box for me, and I will have our communications coordinator, Karen, help me facilitate that chat box a little bit as we go through and watch if there's any questions regarding that specific aspect. So once you've identified the hosting organization, we're going to go ahead and look at how do you host, what is required. So IIMC requires 6 different things when we're doing an approval of your dialogue. Now, before you even advertise the program in any way, shape, or form online, on Facebook, wherever you're doing your advertising for the association or the institute, you have to seek pre-approval from IIMC. This is one of the other big things that we're running into, is that registrations are full, dialogues are full, dialogues are running rampant, and we haven't seen them or approved them in any way, shape, or form. So we need to make sure that before registrations are collected or anything is advertised, that you're working with the education department to host these programs. So during the pre-approval process, we will look for 6 pieces of information. We need to see which approved book you've selected, which approved facilitator you've selected, the date, time, and location logistics for the program, how much that dialogue is going to cost, what kind of registration fees you're collecting. We need to see the registration form or the flyer or some kind of advertising material that you'll be sending out. We also want to see the facilitator's agenda and the learning assessment that will be used. We've made a change to the pre-approval process with the implementation of this presentation, that we're now requiring all of this to be submitted at once. We've created an online form, which I will show you in just a few moments, that makes you send in all of this stuff right away, all together. That way we have everything that we need for the dialogue, and we're not waiting and tracking down and doing a preliminary approval and then a final approval. So what this change does is it makes your facilitators, excuse me, send in the agenda and the assessment a little bit earlier than they traditionally will have. For some facilitators, this may cause an issue because they're not quite sure what their agenda is going to exactly be, or things may shift. That's totally okay. Send us your templates or whatever agenda that you think you're going to be using as of the date, excuse me, that you're submitting for pre-approval. If that changes in any way and the agenda changes or the assessment changes, the association or the facilitator themselves can send us that updated agenda or updated piece of information that needs to be added to our records. So let's go ahead and look at our new Athenian Dialogue approval request form. And this is one of the biggest things that I want everyone to take away from our time together today. This form is listed on the Athenian page. We have revamped the Athenian page to put everything all in one place. So one big page should have all of the links that you need. If you take a look at that page on the website and you see things that are missing or things that need clarification, please let me know. Send me an email and let me know which sections we need to work on, which sections need to be redone. But what this form particular here is going to do is it's going to prompt you to make sure that you have all of the different pieces needed to help you host your Athenian Dialogue and send it to us for pre-approval. This form will not let you move on unless you've answered all the proper questions and attached all the required documentation. And so this really helps out the education department keep track of everything, but it also prompts you as either the facilitator or the hosting organization to make sure that you have your checklist right here on what IIMC needs to pre-approve your dialogue. So what we're going to look for in this form is who is the hosting organization. Again, state, national, provincial association, IIMC approved institute, or IIMC. You're going to give us your name. So if we have questions regarding, we're missing the flyer needs to be updated, or what day and time is this one? If we have any questions, we need to have an individual's contact information that we can reach out to. So that can be the facilitator if you're helping. Usually it's a representative of the hosting organization. You'll also give us your email address so we can communicate with you via email. And then you're going to start to tell us about your particular dialogue. So you're going to give us an option of these two here. Is your dialogue going to be in person or is it going to be virtual? If you choose virtual, make sure that you're following those virtual dialogue guidelines in the policy. And again, if there's questions on those, drop them in the chat box. You'll also give us your dialogue date, and it will give you a full calendar here. This goes pretty far into the future. So if it's 6 months down the road and you're just planning ahead, go ahead and let us know when it's going to be. You'll give us your time here, and it's really important that you give us a time zone, especially with a virtual dialogue. We have a lot of individuals that will say the dialogue is 9 to 4, but since they're virtual, we have a hard time advertising on the website to help fill those seats for you if we don't know what time zone 9 to 4 is being offered in. So make sure you're really specific here in that 9 to 4 or 8 to 5, whatever it is, time frame with the time zone. Now, my favorite feature of this form is that you're going to choose your book and your facilitator, but this is going to link to our database of approved books and facilitators. So you can scroll through in here and find almost all darn near 200 books now on that list. and you'll just choose the one that you want to select and it'll put it in there for you. Same thing with the facilitators. It will give you every facilitator that is on here. And I will show you in a few moments where you find this list with more details on each facilitator in just a few moments on the website. But you're going to give us all of this information, as well as tell us the fee that you're going to be collecting for dialogues. Now, fees are set by the hosting organization. IIMC does not set the fees. The fee that you're going to collect for registration is usually based on what the logistics of organizing the program cost. So you're looking at facilitator fees, room rental fees, if there is lunch included, if you're purchasing books for the attendees, or if they're required to do that on their own. So if you have questions regarding structuring fees, let me know. I'm happy to answer those or help your particular organization do that. You will see on the website, and we'll look at all the approved dialogues in just a few moments, but you will see that the fees vary. Some fees are very cheap for Athenian Dialogues and run $30 for a session. Some states offer $200 sessions. Same dialogues, same credit, just based on what it costs that organization to run the program. You're also going to attach the dialogue flyer or registration form. This form will be put directly up on the IIMC website and potentially the IIMC calendar as well. So we can put links on there to registration forms, but we really want to see the advertising marketing material that you are sending out as an organization to make sure that it meets the IIMC guidelines. So we ask that you attach that here. If you are collecting registration online, which we've seen a lot more lately, some registrations are still asked to be mailed in with a check. Some are now set up online. So this one is not a required field, but if you are collecting registrations online, give us that link. That way we can put that in your section on our website for your dialogue to help market it as well. We are also asking for the agenda that we talked about and the assessment tool. Again, these can be preliminary agendas and can be updated later, as well as the assessment tool. But this gives us everything that we need as a big picture to look at your dialogue and approve it for credit. Okay, so if there's any questions about the form, drop those in the chat and we will scan through those here in just a few moments to take a look at answering those for you. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here. All right, so CMC and MMC credit. Attending a dialogue does earn CMC credit, and we have seen a ton of dialogues coming through certification applications, especially with the ability to attend these online. So just for some clarification on what kind of points are offered, prior to 2013, dialogues were offered for 2 points each. On November 23rd, 2013, the board approved the 1 point per 2 hour point ratio that most IIMC programs earn, most institute programs earn in the education guidelines for certification. So after 2013, November 23rd specifically, dialogues increased from 2 points to 3. So keep in mind that you may have older certificates if you've been in this program for a while that say 2 points. You may have all the current certificates that say 3 points. So a 6-hour dialogue earns you 3 points and brings that program into complete compliance with the education guidelines. To earn those certification points, however, you do need to complete a learning assessment. So us looking at that learning assessment tool that's being used during the pre-approval process lets us verify that there is an assessment that the participants are going to be completing. Now, if you don't complete the learning assessment and you're a CMC applicant or an MMC applicant, you're going to get a certificate that says attendance only. The education department cannot give you credit for that attendance only certificate toward your CMC or MMC. So please make sure that if you're seeking certification credit, that you are doing that learning assessment no matter what it entails and getting the proper certificate. We will talk about fellows here when we get to that section and what the requirements are for fellows and learning assessment. But we do want to point out that you can earn a maximum of 18 points toward your CMC or your MMC. Now that's 18 points each designation, so 18 and 18, okay? Board of Directors wants to make sure that we get credit for the certifications from other aspects, other types of learning, institutes, a more well-rounded view of the clerk education instead of just the Athenian Dialogue leadership focus. So to keep that 18 in mind, That 18 right now translates over to 6 dialogues, though for those completed after the 2013 date. It may shift a little bit if you have the older dialogues that are worth 2 points each. So just keep those in mind. Now let's look at upcoming approved dialogues. So if you're interested in attending a dialogue or if you're hosting a dialogue, all of our approved dialogues can be found on our website. So once we've gone through the approval process with the education department and we've issued the association and approval, we're going to create a listing on our website to help not only advertise the program for you, if that's what you're looking for, but just to keep a running database of all approved dialogues that are upcoming in the future. So this link down here will take us to that page of our website. And you can see that we have a program being offered tomorrow for 2 days. I believe Libby's on the call here too. She'll be facilitating that one for us. And that's going to be a virtual dialogue offered via Zoom meetings. So when we do the pre-approval, we will create an advertisement such as this. Now you'll see in this first one, the glass castle, that all seats have been filled. This would be incredibly helpful for IIMC's education department to know and be able to advertise on the website once you know your dialogue is full. One of the biggest requests that we get from our members since virtual dialogues have been happening is if there isn't a regulated registration form that stops collecting registrations at 30 participants, people are sending in checks and their registration forms when the dialogue is already full. So if the associations or the facilitators or whoever's involved in the planning process can let us know that this dialogue has been filled, we can go ahead and update your listing to reflect that and save your members time from applying to attend this dialogue, but also save you from having to issue refunds or send checks back or whatever that is. So if we can all save each other some time, including our attendees, so that would be ideal. So feel free to communicate with us on where your dialogue is at. Now in here, we're going to advertise all of the information that you gave us during that pre-approval process. The book title, when the author will be the first header, your facilitator will be the second. We're also going to advertise the date and the times, and you'll notice there's Eastern time on these first couple here. Make sure you give us that time zone again, where it's going to be at. Now, if you're offering a virtual dialogue, that will be bolded in black under the place. If it's an in-person dialogue, we're going to be listing the city and the state or country that it's going to be taking place in. We'll also list the fees and whether it includes the book or not. We'll also advertise whether it includes lunch or not. So some of our associations or institutes will build lunch into that registration fee. So that will be included here as well. So the more information you give us as a host, the more information we can pass on to your potential attendees. We'll also advertise that registration form or flyer or registration link here in the View More Information section. So whatever you give us is what's going up online. So make sure that you double check, make sure it reads how you want it to read, but make sure it answers all the frequently asked questions that you're going to get when trying to register for a program. We can also advertise as sold out based on your request. You'll see that from Ruth Bader Ginsburg here. So depending on how you would like us to advertise all seats filled or sold out, we can do that for your organization as well. So this is available right on the website. Here's where we actually go to get to Athenian Dialogues, education at the top, and then Athenian Leadership Society. All of the links to all the documents that we've been looking at today will be found right here on this page of the website. We've added a quick links section over here on the right, which gives you everything all in one place without you having to scroll through all of the purple headers down here. This will give you everything, but if you're just looking for those upcoming dialogues, first link here, approval form here, approved books, everything that you need all in one place. If there are questions about any of the upcoming dialogues, please drop it in the chat box and we will get to those in just a few moments. Now we do have a list of approved books. We've talked about that a couple times. So let's find that book list and see what it actually looks like. On that page that we were just on, you're going to find that link to approved books. We have approximately 200 books, a little less than 200 now. These are organized in our program called Airtable here, and these will be separated by the genre that you find the book in. They're going to be alphabetical from there. And we've also given you the author's name, a book description, and then paperback, how many pages they are, hardcover, how many pages they are. Now, when you get to this form, you can double click on these, expand using this little arrow, and it's going to give you a full description that we've copied from the book's description itself. So you're able to get a really good idea of what kind of book, what you're getting into as you're selecting your books. Now we go through biographies, autobiographies, there's books on history, technology, leadership, all the different genres you'll find on here. If you find any errors on this list, please reach out and let me know. This is quite a large database to maintain, and occasionally as things transitioned over from our more paper version to this online version, things got lost in translation. So if you see anything that needs to be updated, please let me know so I can make the corrections. So if you find for some reason that there's a book that you've read recently or that you feel would be a great addition to that list and it's not on there, we have also created a new book request form. This is an online form that you'll fill out, and it gives us all the book information that we need in order to review it. So let's take a look at that one. Now, this book request form, really, really simple. You're going to give us your name, email address, the book title, the book author, and then here's the big thing that we want to know. One, we want to make sure you've actually read the book cover to cover before making a recommendation. We've had people recommend books in the past, and then once we got to it, or once an attendee got to it, they said this really shouldn't be on the approved book list. It has nothing to do with leadership. There's things have been misconstrued. So we want to make sure that it is read cover to cover and that you are able to answer this bottom question down here. We want to know what the leadership lessons in this book are, good or bad. Doesn't have to be positive leadership, good or bad, and how they can be related back to the duties of a municipal clerk. This will be the biggest job of the facilitator, is to look at the content in the book, pull out all the nuggets of wisdom, leadership, all of the lessons, and translate that over to start a conversation. So if we can't answer this question, then it may not be a good fit for the Athenian Dialogue program. Once this gets submitted to the education department, we will review requests for new dialogues, new book requests, and any of the other forms that we've taken a look at within 10 business days. So we do ask for 2 weeks to do any kind of approval. So keep that in mind when submitting for a new dialogue in general or a new book request. Also fellowship applications, which we'll talk about here in a few. If there's questions about approved books, drop those in the chat and we will answer those. And we also want to make sure that you're selecting an approved facilitator. So IIMC has a list of approved facilitators on our website, and all of the facilitators that you'll see listed on there go through a pre-approval process. So they're required to complete a mentor-mentee process, doing so many hours of mentorship with an approved facilitator already. They're also required to complete a facilitator training with the IIMC Education Department prior to hosting any Athenian Dialogues. So you want to make sure that you're choosing an approved facilitator when you're organizing your dialogue. So there is a list of approved facilitators down here, which we'll give you access to, and they are broken up by region. So as you go through, you'll see names, regions, their actual state or country locations, email address for contact info, and then if they're available to mentor. This column over here really only applies to those who are seeking to become a facilitator. We're going to do a completely separate how-to video on becoming an Athenian facilitator in the future. So we're not going to really focus on that too much today, but just keep in mind that if you're not looking to become a facilitator, this column really isn't relevant to you hosting a dialogue. So just disregard that for now. Facilitators, although they are broken up by region and by state, they can totally travel outside of their region or outside of their state. Just because you're approved as a region 4 facilitator does not mean that you can't go to region 5, 6, 10, 9. So feel free to invite people to travel, virtual dialogues. You can use a facilitator from anywhere across the globe. So these are our facilitators. We currently have 66 approved overall. If you're interested in this recognition or becoming a facilitator, you're always welcome to reach out or take a look at the website, get some more information, and then let me know if you have questions. And again, we'll get into a little bit more facilitator specific stuff on a later call. Let's get back in here. Now, the requirements for becoming a facilitator can also be found on that main page of the website, but there is a supplemental page on that one that takes you here. So this is a little bit more specific to becoming a facilitator. If this is a goal or a pursuit that you would like to pursue, make sure that you take a look at these, read through here. There are requirements for members, but there's also requirements for professionals that aren't members of IIMC. So if you have questions regarding that specific program, again, feel free to reach out and send me an email. Now, the reason for offering Athenian Dialogues is to join the Athenian Leadership Society. The society was kind of created to be an enhancement or something beyond the MMC program. So most people are joining the Athenian Society once they learn that they start enjoying Athenian Dialogues. So there's two ways to be inducted into the society. The first is to be inducted as a member. Any IIMC member, regardless of your membership status, can join IIMC's Athenian Leadership Society. There's a one-page application which you'll fill out, giving us your personal contact information, and you'll pay the $15 fee. Now, this fee eventually covers the cost of the Athenian pin that you'll be given when you are inducted as a fellow. So that's where that $15 fee comes in. And let's take a look at that application really quick. It's a real simple one right on the IIMC website. You'll give us your IIMC membership ID number. If you don't have that, you are welcome to call IIMC headquarters and we'll give you your ID number. And then it's just contact information, not really asking you any huge questions, not asking you to attach any dialogues, certificates, just your contact information telling us that you're interested. This will get emailed to us, your payment will get processed, and then we will go ahead and add you to our list of Athenian members. Once you've completed 10 Athenian Dialogues, I'm sorry that this keeps skipping out of the live version. Once you've completed 10, you can apply for the highest recognition that IIMC offers in the Athenian Society to become a fellow. You'll be inducted and receive your fellowship. Once you've done the 10 and you've had your your fellowship approved, you'll also be recognized at the upcoming IIMC conference. So if you've ever been to an IIMC conference and you've been there at the opening ceremony on Monday morning, we do call up all Athenian fellowships that were recognized since the last conference, and we do recognize everyone on stage. So it's a really nice way to put a feather in your cap here above and beyond that MMC. Now, the MMC is not required for you to achieve this, but it's usually that next step in the progression of continuing education. So the fellowship application is a little bit different than the membership application. Let's take a peek at that one. Now, the fellowship application asks you for your contact info, but it also prompts you to make sure that you've applied for that membership first. So step one, we got to be a member of the Athenian Society. So this box will let us go ahead and help verify that. And if you haven't done so, there is a link to the actual form that you can use to register as a member of the society. And then you're going to attach all 10 of your dialogue certificates. We will take a look at this once it gets emailed directly over to us. Review, verify that all 10 of your dialogues were IIMC approved. Now, that's the big thing about the call today. We wanted to make sure that all dialogues are IIMC recognized through the new pre-approval process. If we have a member that comes through that attended a dialogue that wasn't IIMC approved, that dialogue does not count for their fellowship. It does not count for their CMC or their MMC. So if we can all get on board together to make sure that all dialogues are approved, this application goes really smoothly, CMC and MMC applications go really smoothly, and everyone gets the credit for the time that they've put into those programs. So pretty simple, nothing major, just one attachment here and then a prompt to complete the membership application. If there are any questions about the society itself, feel free to drop those into the chat box. But I do want to give you our contact information. I know I've said email me a couple of times. My email address is on the screen, ashley@iimc.com. And then the other half of the education department is our education associate, Kelly. She's actually on the phone right now talking about CMC and MMC applications and couldn't join us. But her contact info is also on the screen. So if for some reason I am unavailable or you have questions about CMC and MMC and how dialogues translate, Kelly is our CMC and MMC expert. So if you have any questions about any of that, she is also able to answer anything that we talked about today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and look at the chat box and take some questions if anybody has questions there. Karen, if there was anything that jumped out right away that we need to answer, let me know.
Well, I think to start out with, there are a few questions about hosting. I want to host an Athenian Dialogue. Where do I lie in that graphic that you showed?
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so I'm looking at Lee Woodward's question here. So Lee asked us, in Texas, we have a number of area chapters who host dialogues in addition to those hosted by the larger association, TMCA. We work with IIMC and TMCA in advance of promoting those. How do you define your yellow circle hosts? So the yellow circle that we looked at on that graphic was state, national, provincial associations. Subdivisions or regional divisions of that association fall in that same category. So if you have a northern division of your clerk association or a region 2 division, I know Virginia is broken up into regions. If region 2 in Virginia is going to host the dialogue, that region 2 of VMCA, or in this case, TMCA, would be considered a state, national, provincial association. So subdivisions, subsections, smaller regions can definitely host under that same umbrella of association. If that doesn't help, let me know, guys, drop it in the chat.
And Ashley, I want to call your attention to the follow-on question from Denise Tucker.
Let me find. Okay, yeah. I live in a state without an association. What if I want to host an Athenian Dialogue for people in the state trying to earn credit? Now, this is a tough one because IIMC requires that you have an association or an institute get involved. A group of clerks would not be able to host an Athenian Dialogue. So what we would need to do is look at partnering with a local or a neighboring state to see if that they're willing to partner with you to offer a joint Athenian Dialogue. Unfortunately, we aren't able to allow at this time just a group of clerks or an individual municipality to offer that dialogue. So you would want to seek out another association that would be able to do that for you. Now, one other thing that we have seen is that there are leagues, municipal leagues. Municipal leagues can be considered an association as well. So if some of our institutes in some of our states don't have a clerk-specific association, but rather they partner with their municipal league, that league can be considered your association as well. So if you have specific questions regarding your state, your particular entity, let me know, reach out, and let's start that conversation. That way we can talk about that one a little bit more in depth for those that don't have a clerk association or don't have an institute. Great question. Let me see what else. How far in advance do you want your pre-approval request? I may have answered that one, Jeanette, but 10 days is what we're looking for. Now, 10 days is what it's going to take us to sort through the first come, first serve. However, 10 days is not going to be enough for you to fill all those seats, most likely. So we always say that if you are going to host an Athenian Dialogue, as soon as you know the logistics, go ahead and send it in. Even if your dialogue is 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever it may be, get that stuff in there as soon as possible. That way you get your approval then, and then you can start collecting registrations. Depending on the time of year, depending on the location, certain books are harder to fill than others. So you may not have an instant sellout. So make sure you get those in sooner rather than later. But it does take us 10 days to be able to do that pre-approval process. What if it is hybrid, virtual, and in person? Which method do we select? Go ahead and select virtual. Just select virtual so we know that there's going to be some kind of virtual component and that you're going to be following those virtual guidelines. If it is hybrid, make sure that that is listed on the registration form or the flyer document that you're going to attach. That way we're aware that it's going to be a dual format. And that you're going to be looking at one portion with a group in person and one portion with a group online. Great question, Jeanette. Should we include proposed books on this form as well? Jennifer's just saying, if you want to drop in that chat box, which form you're referring to, that would be really helpful and I could answer that one. I live in a state, let's see. Assume you want all the forms as PDF files. PDFs are great, but you can attach Word docs. You can attach any other version. That attachment will take any of those formats as long as it's recognized as a document and not a picture. I don't believe that it'll take a photo, a JPEG or a PNG. So just make sure it's a document of some kind on. Will the assessments be available to see by the participants early? I wouldn't want them to work on the assessment prior to. IIMC doesn't advertise assessments to anybody. Those are simply for our records to make sure that the assessment is more than a program evaluation. When it comes to assessments, we have a lot of associations that will send in, we want you to rate the facilitator. How well did you enjoy this program on a scale to 1 to 5? So that is an evaluation, not an assessment itself. The learning assessment is what we want to make sure that there is involved in this dialogue, but we don't send anything out or advertise that on the website to anybody beforehand. That is the job of the facilitator and the association, not IIMC. So rest assured, we're not going to let all the secrets out of the bag before you get to the dialogue. Agenda and assessment are asterisks. I'm going to assume that means they are required. Yes. So Kitty, what if a facilitator doesn't have the documents at the time? We do need some form of that document. That is the one biggest change that we're making to the program now. We spend quite a bit of time tracking down old dialogues or dialogues that have happened in the past that we never received the agenda or the assessment, and which means that the dialogue is not approved. So what we're asking is that the facilitator give us something ahead of time, even if it's just a skeleton outline, doesn't have to be the final version. I know as a facilitator myself that I work on things right up until the very last minute before you go live with that program. So I understand things that are going to change. But in order to see that there is something happening, work is being done, that we do have the tools we need, we require some sort of structure upfront. You can send in a supplemental version of it later once you have your final version. How do you verify membership to the Athenian Society? If you're not sure if you're a member of the society, you're welcome to send me an email. We can take a look at it and then let you know whether you have filled out that membership application or not. We also have a roster on our website, which I should have linked into that program or into that PowerPoint. But we do have a roster of all approved fellows and members on our website. So if you take a look at that Athenian Leadership Society main page, you're going to be looking for all of the approved fellows and members. There's a big list on there, a database that will show you. So if you don't see your name on there, most likely you are not a member of the society. If you know you are and your name is missing, please let me know. It may have been lost in translation again as we move things over to the online version. So let me know for sure. Georgia has a statewide municipal association that offers training in addition to the clerks associations. Are they still allowed to host? Yes, Georgia Municipal Association is considered an association. They can go ahead and host. Sometimes you'll see the programs open to a lot of different types of municipal officials in that case, which is totally okay. Got it, Jennifer, thank you. My concern would be a book that a facilitator hasn't read yet, but needs to prepare. The hosting organization needs to advertise. Okay, understand, Janice. We do need some kind of documentation giving an idea of what the facilitator is going to be doing. So I understand the concern in that you're not quite sure what you're going to do with it yet. But if you can give me an outline showing me that we've at least looked at it and what we traditionally do as a facilitator with your assessment, we can look at it. We do need something to get them approved. And again, it doesn't have to be the final version, but your initial thoughts on paper would be very, very helpful to complete that process. Okay. Let me just scroll through here. We go over how to become a facilitator and how to acquire a mentor. Yeah, Jim, we're going to be doing a separate video or a separate tutorial on that one, specific to the people that are interested in being a facilitator. Not everybody on this call is going to pursue that route or that next step. So we'll go ahead and put together a version of a Zoom meeting of some kind in which we'll focus specifically on facilitators. That way we can dive a little bit deeper into those, go over all of the different requirements, the policy for those as well. So great question. Stay tuned. I don't have a date yet, but we'll get that out as soon as we can. Let's see, can we discuss the approved book list, specifically the recent trend toward leadership books as opposed to books where you have to employ critical thinking to get at that leadership lesson? Yeah, Lana, you are welcome to send me an email and we can start the conversation. Or if you have a little bit more information that you want to drop in the chat box here on what you specifically want to discuss, you are welcome to do that. We have seen quite a trend in the leadership books lately. The Athenian Leadership Society is a leadership program, but we do see almost clusters where we'll get a bunch of submissions in or a bunch of dialogues being hosted on presidential figures. And then we'll get more of the leadership, a little bit on the fluffier side of the books. And then we'll come back to really hardcore business principle leadership. So we do see kind of waves in terms of what is trending globally in terms of issues, the kinds of books that are being selected, or the kinds of books that are being put forward for addition to the list. So you're welcome to reach out, Lana. I encourage you to do that to give me a little bit more info in an email on what it is that you would like to talk about with that one. So I think I made it through the chat box. If there's other questions that aren't in there, let me know. If anybody would like to unmute and ask questions as well, you are welcome to do that. Just raise your hand. We'll call on you. But otherwise, we will put this presentation up on the IIMC website. We will also link it or embed it onto the Athenian page. We'll put it up on IIMC's YouTube channel, and we'll send it out in an e-briefing too. So make sure that if there's any questions that we can answer for you before we advertise all of that, let us know. But you are welcome to email or call IIMC headquarters at any time. Thank you so much for looking at the presentation, getting on the same page with all of us, but also thank you for working with our new process. We've spent a lot of time in the trenches trying to just find things and dig for things and tracking people down. So I know it's a new change, and online forms and change can be something that we hesitate with or that we're hesitant for. But thank you for making sure that everybody gets credit for what they need. IIMC staff gets what they need to do the approval and promote and help fill those seats in your program. So thank you so much, everyone. Let me browse through the chat box one last time just to make sure we're not missing anything. But
Actually,
otherwise, oh, Karen, yeah.
If I may jump in,
yes.
I think that it would be important for me to add, especially in light of our virtual Athenian path. Several of you know well too well that there is a need for not only your Athenian facilitator, but also a technical administrative facilitator. Because we know that the Athenian facilitator is focused on content and they are not able to do both. So as you are planning your virtual dialogues, you will need to take into account that you need to also include this technical advisor. And several of you have already become pros at this. Jennifer Sassane, I'm looking at you. Jason Camp, I'm looking at you. If you need help, you can ask us for suggestions, and we can start that conversation too, because this is kind of a new role that is needed for virtual Athenian dialogues that we didn't need before for in-person ones.
That's a great point, Karen. Karen has actually served as, Karen is our communications coordinator for anyone that hasn't met her before here at IIMC. She's our tech guru and our whiz, but she's also been the tech person for Region 2's dialogues over the last 12 months. So Karen is very familiar on what it takes to be the tech person. She was also my right hand on the virtual institute programs that we did in 2020. So it does take a lot of time and a lot of distraction for the facilitator to try to run the tech if a virtual dialogue is being offered and facilitate the session. To make sure that your attendees get the best possible dialogue outcome, hire a tech coordinator or a tech facilitator of some kind. And when we say hire, it doesn't have to be a IT department person. All of us have kind of become experts in Zoom, and that can help people in the waiting room, or if they get disconnected and their links don't work or microphones aren't working. So just make sure that you're taking that into consideration. Set your facilitator and your attendees up for success by adding one extra body in there to bear that load, okay? I know I see a list of fellows, but not society members. I'll have to take a look at that one, Denise, thank you. And then is there a maximum of 18 points for CMC and an additional 18 points for MMC? Yes, so 18 and 18. Okay, well, you are all welcome to sign off. If there's any other questions, I will stay and Karen will stay, and you're welcome to ask those individually. But otherwise, have a fantastic day. Thank you for joining us today. And if you need anything, you know where to find us. Bye, everyone.